Hello guys, we are starting this little tour type video. We're in the main square, but I'm not going to actually show you a lot of the main square and the main tourist spots. But when you arrive here in Kraków, in the main square, main market square, or Rynek Główny, you're going to definitely see two buildings. And this is this one, Cost Hall on my left. One of the most characteristic buildings here in the city, but also beautiful. Also remember not to buy souvenirs in it because usually it's more expensive than in any other places, and also it's usually not made in Poland. The other one is obviously this St. Mary's Basilica, one of the most beautiful churches in the city, not just on the outside but also inside. Beautiful when it comes to the decorations in on the walls and the beautiful stained glass windows, as well as the biggest altarpiece from the 15th century in Europe, made by Weizsäcker, and it cost the budget of the city, the entire budget, for 1 year. It took 12 years to make it. Absolutely stunning, although right now it's under renovation, so be warned, if you see it, it might not be full. Right now it's 9 o'clock on a Friday, so it's quite empty here when it comes to people. As you can see, there aren't many of them. But if you come here early in the morning, you'll see a lot of trucks, a lot of vans bringing things to restaurants, bringing supplies. But you also hear the bugle call. You'll also meet sometimes a lot of stock parties. Be warned, we don't like them. We actually get annoyed when they get very loud. Don't get loud in the city center. It's not nice. It's not respectful to anybody. Everybody gets annoyed. It's not just locals, everybody. And now we're going to leave the main square. We're going to follow some of the less trodden paths in the city center, in the old town. So I'm going to show you some of the streets that are usually quiet, so you don't have to go through the hustle and bustle of Florianska, which is absolutely beautiful and stunning, but is better to see in the morning. So instead of turning here into Florianska, you're going along the side of St. Mary's. And now we are going to the small market square. Along this street, you'll also see some beautiful buildings. Don't forget to look around and take that in, because that can be really stunning. And also, how about that? Small market square is a place which is sometimes very quaint, even if the entire main square is packed. So sometimes there are events taking place here, including our annual Pierogi festival, which takes place usually in mid-August. This year was very quiet because of the pandemic, but usually it's packed full of people. So if you like pierogi or you want to check out as many kinds as possible, this is a great place to start, because they sell them by piece, and there are a lot of people preparing a lot of their best pierogi for the event every single year. Generally, you can sit in one of the places along the square. You can look up at the back of St. Mary's. There are a lot of places to chill out here and just take a step away from the main square, have a quiet moment. Sometimes people wonder whether it's legal for cars to come into the city center. It is, but under some circumstances only. You have to have a permission, you have to have a permit from the city, and also it is legal for suppliers coming to the restaurants and shops all around the old town. It can be annoying, especially if you're here in the early morning and you're trying to get a little bit of peace and quiet, but usually it's just not dangerous at all here. So watch out for cars. They can come through one of the streets when you're walking in it, but usually they are careful. Now look at this. So yes, there are cars, but there aren't many people. And if you just look down those streets, you'll see all the beautiful old buildings, and especially it looks very nice in this kind of weather. Now it's the end of August, so it's still warm, but it can also get quite cold very soon. Right now we are in Tomasza Street, Świętego Tomasza Street, or St. Thomas. In this building, right here on the corner, you'll find one of, well, the hidden gems of Old Town. If you walk into the building of the Academy of Music, you can perhaps hear a little bit of the music being played in the background, and go on the lift up to the 6th floor, you'll find a little terrace with a beautiful view of the Old Town and generally the city. So it's something that not everybody knows about, but if you go up, you'll be satisfied. If you want, you can grab something to eat or a coffee. It's a bistro called Metrum, and you'll find a very nice place there to sit and look down on everybody around you. So right now it's closed until the end of the month, but from September they should be starting again, and they will definitely welcome you. In the communist times, milkworks were very, very popular. They were extremely cheap and provided a lot of food for a, well, just a symbolic amount of money. Right now they are almost non-existent, but this one is famous. I'm not quite sure if that follows really the rules of what a milkwork should be, but it is famous for its big English breakfasts. So if you need a lot of food in you for a relatively small amount of money, visit it here in Tomasza. We will be turning from Tomasza into the street that we actually followed for a moment there, which is called Świętego Krzyża, or Holy Cross. If you see or hear a lot of reconstruction going on, just accept it. We do a lot of work. Every day there's something being done, whether it's an old building or a street. You'll unfortunately have to bear with it. This part of the street is my favorite. Usually it's quiet and really peaceful. And when you walk to the end of it, you'll find this beautiful old house. It's the house of the parish of the Holy Cross Church. It's beautiful, very old. Dates back to more or less early Middle Ages. You can see by the stone. And this is the Holy Cross Church, which is very small but very famous for its ceiling, which looks like a palm tree, more or less. It's all supported by one big column, and just look at that. This is Gothic, but Polish Gothic, so not exactly like what you'd see in Western Europe. There's a lot of brick. It's just some stone here in the oldest parts. Usually if you see that a wall is built out of stone in a Gothic church in Poland, it means that this is the oldest part, or that for some reason there was a lot of money put into a church. And if you look closely, there is a statue of Jesus falling under the cross at the back of the chancel. We're going to cross a piece of that very crowded tourist path, but still it's relatively quiet here next to the Słowacki Theatre. Impressive. But well, soon enough it's going to get crowded with tourists, and sometimes you can find me here leading a group of tourists and showing them the theatre and going on to the city walls. And look at that. when you arrive, the square here should be finished. They've been working on it for a couple of months, and it's going to be nice with some seats and some plants, and I think a big tree. So a little bit of shade will provide it. It is called Szpitalna, Hospital Street, because there was the first hospital in Kraków here in the Middle Ages. I like it particularly because of the view of the cathedral towers in the distance, but it's also very famous for a lot of antique bookshops. At this point you should be probably looking up. Usually if you look down you'll see a lot of tourists, but right now not the case. Right now you can just enjoy the view. What's left of the old defense walls of the city. You can visit them, you can walk along the wall here. Look at this. This part is also very famous for their gallery. It's just being set up, so you can usually find some paintings here to buy and bring home as a souvenir. Some of them are not really Krakowian, but you can find something that will show you the main square or something. And this, what you can see here, this little building, and also this is the old city arsenal, and this is the Czartoryski Museum. So if you look in here, this is where you're going to find the lady with an ermine by Leonardo da Vinci. This is one of the most important museums in the city, and just look at the surroundings. Look at the little stained glass in the windows. Absolutely stunning. We also have a painting by Rembrandt here, and also many other beautiful artifacts. There's a lot of stuff there. Oh, and this. I'm going to do something like this. So, carriages, horse-drawn carriages are very popular with tourists in Kraków. They are everywhere, especially if it's not very hot or very cold. They are there in the main square. You can find them easily, but be warned, they are expensive. They are touristy. They are there to rip you off. It's not worth it. Also, very often the horses are not well looked after. Very often they have trouble with their hooves because of the cobblestones, and they suffer. So if you feel like seeing something of the city, walk. The city is extremely walkable. It's very walking friendly. If you want to go around the city but you can't walk very far, take one of the electric cars that also offer tours of the city. Some of them are better, some of them are worse. It's difficult for me to tell which ones are better, but I know that, for example, I have a friend, Konrad, who is a licensed guide, and he drives one of these things. So there are chances of finding a good tour with a good guide in one of these things. It's not just recordings. And look up. I don't know why this one is still on, but it really does look nice. And this is the Church of Christ's Transfiguration. It's, well, a beautiful example of Baroque in Kraków. And in the crypt, usually the coffins of important Poles are stored before their funerals, which usually take place somewhere in the city. Right now we are in the street called Świętego Jana, or St. John's. It's also one of the main streets that start in the main square, but actually it's usually quiet as well. So if you want to take a stroll somewhere in the old town through one of the older streets, it's not a bad choice. In Świętego Jana you can also see this building, which used to be a beautiful classic piece of 18th century architecture, late 18th century. But as you can see, it's not really well taken care of. There are plenty of beautiful buildings that have been renovated and look absolutely stunning, but some of them are still waiting for their turn. This one is, I think, about to be renovated, so hopefully soon enough we're going to see it in all its glory, just like the ones nearby. So it takes time. A lot of time was wasted during the communist times because communists did not like Kraków. They saw it as a kind of mecca of opposition and reactivism, not communism. So they didn't really invest in the city, except for Nowa Huta, which was created as the perfect social realism example of a city. So unfortunately, not much went into the historical fabric of the city. How about this little nook? It's actually relatively popular with people, with tourists. Some of these cafes right here need to be really either reserved or you have to come very early to catch a seat. And there is this tiny church located here, St. John's, two Johns actually, the Baptist and the Evangelist. The view from St. John Street is also beautiful. See the clock hall and what's left of the almost original facade of the Phoenix building. I've made at least one post about it. I will still soon post something about it because it has an interesting history, even though it's just about 100 years old. Right now we are in a street called Słaskowska, which meant leading to Słaskow, which is a town relatively nearby. At the end of it, you see the Globe House, which is a house that I have talked about before. It's a beautiful example of Krakow's Art Nouveau, and obviously, like in any street in the old town, we find a church. And again, it's a very old one. It goes back to the Middle Ages. It's a Gothic structure mostly, but it's not a very famous one. It's St. Mark's. But this is also a much more quiet place here in the old town. So if you turn off Sławkowska into Świętego Marka, St. Mark's, you'll walk along this little street. And this street leads you, believe it or not, to another church. And that's the sixth, I think, that I've shown you today. That's the little one there. It's the church of Saint Casimir the Prince. Saint Casimir was one of six sons of one of Poland's kings, Casimir the Jagiellon, and Elizabeth Habsburg. They married, even though he was not quite willing, because she wasn't the prettiest princess in the land, but they made a very good match, a very happy couple, and they had 12 children. 4 of their sons became kings, 3 of them kings of Poland, 1 was king of Hungary. Casimir was a saint. He died very early, and the 6th one, Frederick, became a cardinal at the age of 20, I believe. All of their daughters also married well, and if you are interested in all the royal families right now in Europe, they are all actually descended from this couple, Casimir Jagiellon and Elizabeth Habsburg. Sometimes next to churches you see a bell like this, hanging quite high up on a wall. This one is actually next to the monastery, but a long time ago there used to be a rope hanging here from the bell, so you could pull it easily from the street level. And if you did that, you could get prayers for someone who was dying in your family, for example. So the people heard the bell and knew that someone was in need for prayer. want to get away from the crowds, just turn into one of the smaller streets. You will find some peace. Now we are going along the street to the Plante Park, so back to where the city walls used to be. And also somewhere around here, there used to be the first system of running water located. It's called the Rurmus, which basically provided people with water in the middle via a system of wooden pipes. Also located here was the executioner's tower. So the executioner lived in one of the towers along the city walls, and when you're in the Plante Park, remember to look around for the remnants of the city walls, and those little plaques inform you which tower was located nearby or which gate. This is where I'm going to leave you off today, and this is the Plante Park. Walk around it. It's about 4 kilometers long, just circling the old town. So walk around it, especially if you need a little bit of chill under the trees. It's much nicer in summer to walk around the park than the streets. So keep that in mind and come to Kraków, visit us, and enjoy.